All right, so God created an entire world and he called us to rule over his good world as human beings. Now, how do we know that? Well, because a lot of times these books that are written in the scriptures, they're written in a certain literary structure, and that literary structure actually signals to us the purpose of the book. For instance, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy are all one book. Now, we call them the 5 books of Moses or the Torah, but they're actually one literary unit. And how we know this is because at the beginning of Genesis and at the end of Deuteronomy, you have the same structure. At the beginning of Genesis, you have chapter 1. God creates an entire space and then he fills that space. He creates a place where his presence dwells and then he fills it. For instance, day 1 of Genesis chapter 1, day 1 of creation, God creates a form or a structure. Day 4, he fills it. On day 2, he forms a structure, and on day 5, he fills it. Day 3, again, he creates a space or a structure, and on day 6, he fills it. And then he creates human beings, and he says, I have blessed you. I want you to multiply and rule over this space. Now, what does that mean for us? At the end of Deuteronomy, Moses dies, and before he dies, he actually blesses the 12 tribes, Jacob's sons. He blesses the 12 tribes of Israel. Why does that matter? Well, just before he blesses them, they build the tabernacle, which is now the presence of God. So in Genesis 1, God creates a temple, the earth, a tabernacle, if you will, where he's going to dwell with mankind. And then he tells them, you are blessed, and I want you to go rule over this space. In Deuteronomy 33 and 34, Moses blesses the 12 tribes after they had just built a space for God. And then he said, I'm going to bring you into a new land, the promised land, and I want you to rule and subdue the promised land. So at the beginning of the Torah, the first 5 books, which is a one whole literary unit, the beginning of it is a space created where God dwells with man and man rules over it. The end of the Torah is a space where God dwells with man and then calls them to a land to rule over it, which is the promised land. But here's the cool thing. Right in the middle of the Torah is the book of Leviticus. It's the 3rd book. It's the middle book. And right in the middle of the middle book is the highlight of the book of Leviticus. See, in ancient Near East writing, the authors wouldn't, like we do in modern writing, they don't put the climax of the book at the end. They put it in the middle. And in the middle of Leviticus is chapter 16, which is the Day of Atonement, which is the death, sacrifice of Jesus Christ to make a space holy, his blood shed to make space holy again. So in the same way that the priests would shed the blood of an animal and sprinkle it in the holy place to make it holy, Jesus shed his blood to make the space where he dwells holy. So the Torah is one literary unit. There's a blessing at the beginning with mankind to rule. There's a blessing at the end, just before the children of Israel go into the promised land. They are blessed and they're called to rule. Right in the middle of that book is the death of Jesus Christ and his blood shed, the Day of Atonement. So the book of the Torah is explaining to us how God created a space. He made it holy. He calls us to subdue and rule over it his way. That means his kingdom. That's what the rule of God means, is just his kingdom. So the first 5 books of the Bible actually tell a story of how God created a space where he dwells with mankind to rule.